and welcome to the Randox Food Seminar. Thank you so much everyone for joining. We've quite a lot of people joining from all over the world, so whatever time it is in your part of the world, we really appreciate you joining our webinar here today, where we're going to talk about the multiplexed approach for mycotoxin exposure monitoring and control. My name's Kerry. I'm our Vice President of Marketing and Customer Support here. I've also got our keynote speaker here, which is Dr. Liberty Sabanda. First of all, I'm going to take you through, if you haven't heard of Randox before, I'm going to take you through an overview of exactly who Randox Food are. And then I'll do an introduction to Liberty and he'll take you through his keynote. We also have Randox Food Diagnostics Research and Development team available to answer any of the questions. There's a Q&A function on our webinar, so please feel free to ask any questions throughout, and our R&D team will be available to answer some of your questions. So just a bit of an introduction as to who Randox are. So Randox Food Diagnostics are a subsidiary of Randox Laboratories, which was established in 1982. The Randox Laboratories brand is known all over the world, and we have a range of different companies as well. Those companies include Randox Health, which is our consumer side of our business. We also have our biosciences team, which focuses on pharmaceuticals, Randox Toxicology, which reviews drugs of abuse testing, Randox Testing Services, which is a drugs of abuse testing service for customers, and then we've also got Randox Food Diagnostics. Our customers are spread over 90 different countries across the world, and every hour of every day, over 1,000 Randox food tests are carried out globally. We work with a range of distribution partners throughout the world and in over 35 companies that are spanning over 50 countries. We also have a dedicated research and development team that are increasingly looking to review various different trends and develop new assays for our various different customers around the world. As we all know, there is a real problem with mycotoxins globally. A lot of you will be aware that mycotoxins are a global issue, and it's responsible for loss of between 5 and 10% of the crops globally. The consumption of mycotoxins can have an adverse effect on health, especially in humans and animals. And as a result, we really need to implement routine screening for multiple mycotoxins. This is why Randox has developed testing for multiplexing for mycotox testing. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our products for mycotoxin testing now. So we work with a range of different mycotoxin products that are suitable, but it's not completely limited to animal feed producers, food manufacturers, fit for human consumption, such as pasta or baby food. And we have two different types of testing methods. One is our patented technology, which is a Biochip array technology, which allows us to do multiple tests with a single sample. That means that you can screen up to 54 different samples in under 2.5 hours. And we also have an ELISA platform as well, which is suitable for our Ergot Alkaloid tests as well. I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Liberty Sabanda. He is our international mycotoxin product specialist at Randox Food. He's worked at Randox for the last 5 years, and Liberty currently holds a PhD in Liberty currently holds a PhD in pharmaceutical science and is focused on the development of accelerated methods for mycotoxin detection, as well as an MBA in international business management. He's authored 23 scientific manuscripts and published an A1 peer-reviewed journal on the detection of mycotoxin veterinary drug residues. Dr. Sabanda has extensive experience providing solutions to government residue monitoring programs and has testing laboratories in Africa, Europe, Latin, and North America. Dr. Sabanda, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Thank you for the kind introduction and welcome everyone. Good afternoon. I am going to take you through my presentation today, a multiplexed approach strategy to mycotoxin exposure, monitoring and control. Okay. Yep. So I'll continue now. So mycotoxins are a global health hazard, and we at Randox Food, we are very much involved as a solution provider for these mycotoxin problems. And we provide testing platforms for cereals, grains, feed, including DDGs. Now we have also ventured into mycotoxin in cannabis. But we do not only test for mycotoxins. Just to have a small addition here, we also test for veterinary drugs and pesticides in tissue, milk, honey, and cereal products, including feed. So just to have a better perspective on things, so I'm going to talk about mycotoxicology and co-occurrence. And this will provide a better strategy or a better foundation for, strategy-wise going forward. So these are the main problems when you talk about the notorious guys on the mycotoxin scene. The aspergillus here at the top, you have the penicillin here at the bottom, and here you have these spore chains in mycelia of the fusarium. So these are the very notorious guys when it comes to mycotoxin production. But just to give you one example regarding corn, I have here on the left, corn is contaminated or infested with aspergillus. And then here in the middle, we have fusarium infestation. But here on the right, we have both fusarium and aspergillus. Now, in a situation like that, of course, you do not expect just one mycotoxin to be tested for. Therefore, you have to think, from a multifaceted, approach to mycotoxin testing. Because when we talk about, real global situations out there, we are not talking about only one infestation in one mycotoxin. We're talking about many mycotoxins. And looking at this table here on the right about the crops, you can see that corn is common to all of them, okay? And wheat is also represented quite fairly throughout, as a substrate that is contaminated by all these fungi. And you see here that the aspergillus produces both aflatoxins and ochratoxins. And then these are the fusarium toxins. So wherever you have these two fungi or fungal genera, you will expect at least two mycotoxins. So the single toxin approach does not work. Okay, so this is why I'm saying here you have your aspergillus on the same corn. So you have aflatoxin and ochratoxin A, and then you also have your fusarium over there. So you would expect these fusarium toxins to be present in this particular situation. So there was, just to give a brief overview on data, that's been collected from surveys that have been done previously. This is just a summary of one of those surveys here on the left at the top, that the percentage of non-contaminated crops was less than 1%. And the ones with ones with one mycotoxins were only up to 5%. And then the rest, which is about 94%, had more than one mycotoxin in them. So this just goes on to say that, mycotoxin is a multifaceted problem, which needs, a much broader approach in terms of strategy to mitigate. So, and then another survey, this is data from another survey here, no mycotoxins, we're up to 5% here, and then one mycotoxin is about 17%, and then two mycotoxins are about 30%, and then three mycotoxins are about 35%, and then four mycotoxins are about 13%. So you can imagine that when you mix all those matrices, wheat, corn, soya, in making feed, this is pig feed. So there was no sample, there were no samples that had zero mycotoxins in them. So the least percentage of samples with, this is about 1.3%, had one mycotoxin. The rest had more than one mycotoxin. So the higher percentages had more than one mycotoxins in them. And the distribution of mycotoxins globally is, of course, you do not have regions where you say, oh yeah, we are safe, or, you know, and stuff like that. So whoever says that is really, you know, burying their head in the sand like an ostrich. We do have a global problem. So I know that a lot of people talk about aflatoxin, and if you look here in this graph, the aflatoxin is the blue one, very blue one here at the bottom, sorry. And so if you take this aflatoxin incidence and compare it to the ochratoxin, the brown one, ochratoxin here, in some instances, you know, ochratoxin is actually more than aflatoxin, you know. Only in South Asia, in Southeast Asia, that's where you have more aflatoxin being more problematic than the ochratoxin A. And then if you look at your DON and your fumonisin, they are quite prevalent in quite, you know, a lot of the areas, you know, globally. Therefore, this problem is really global. You know, the fact that mycotoxins have, you know, health, they give health problems, is one of the reasons why they should be controlled. You know, for fumonisin, they are linked to the liquefaction of the membrane of the brain. This was found out in horses. So I do not know yet. There's no data yet that shows what kind of effect they might be having, you know, for human brain. But they've been correlated quite positively with incidences of esophageal cancer, and apparently serignomatocysteine also is linked to problems with the throat. Things like aflatoxins, fumonisins, and patchoulin, they are known to be immunosuppressive. So in this era of COVID-19 and other things, you know, if you are exposed to mycotoxins and your immunity is suppressed, this could actually have very bad outcomes. So ochratoxin A is also linked to hepatocellular carcinoma, just as aflatoxins are, but ochratoxin A is strongly linked with the kidney cancers as well. So because of all these problems, you know, there are lists of regulations that are in force, be it in America, in Europe, but globally we are looking at what the Codex does as well. So by way of a brief comparison and giving just examples of a few crops, I'm just going to do a brief comparison here of EU regulations against the US regulations, and also comparing that to Codex Alimentarius. And this is for corn. You see that for the EU, they are covering all the mycotoxins that are problematic, really. And then recently, they've added here a recommendation for chitotoxin for 100 ppb. So, of course, I'm not covering all the sub regulations for the same mycotoxins in different types of maize and so on, finished products, raw products, and so on. So I'm just taking just the raw regulations and other details. In other words, we'll spend the whole day here. And the US here is covering only 4, and Codex covers 4, but of course it's splitting the aflatoxins into total and B1. And then we have wheat, and for wheat, of course, the EU is only missing everybody else, of course, missing anything for fumonisins, because you do not expect wheat to be contaminated with fusarium, and therefore, I mean, no fumonisins, no fusarium, no fumonisin production in wheat. Therefore, there's no need to include a regulation for wheat. simple matrices or crops like peanuts, they're infested with, when affected, with aspergillus. And aspergillus produces aflatoxins and ochratoxins, and it goes, logically that, we should have regulations for both aflatoxins and ochratoxins. And Codex also does that. The US, I haven't seen any other regulation here except for total aflatoxin. And then feed, like I've indicated previously, that feed is infested with all types of mycotoxins. And you can see here the EU has aflatoxins, and another regulation here that introduces ochratoxins, fumonisin, DON, and so forth, and up to T2 in the recent commission recommendation. However, Codex is very silent on everything else except total aflatoxin. So this is not helpful. But the US covers 3 mycotoxins. Okay, so this has a problem, of course, when there is trade between, or amongst the regions. So you can see here that the US, there were rejections close to 400 rejections. I think this is a summary from the rapid alert system from the EU, almost 400 rejections of import by the EU. Here, the highest one was Turkey. So consignments from Turkey, more than 1,000 were rejected. If you look elsewhere, you can see that we have to look into fulfilling all the regulations regarding all the regulated mycotoxins. So it should be tested for in control in whatever substances that we want to trade. So what are the current monitoring strategies? We see that for raw grain coming from the farms, coming into silos, they come in through trucks and so on, and there's no time to do tests. But you have these lateral flow dipsticks, and they work pretty well. Their advantages, of course, is you can do it on site. They are fast. Including maybe sample preparation, it's only maybe up to 15-20 minutes, and the truck can offload and go. But they do have their own disadvantages as well regarding precision, accuracy. So I'm just quoting here Scott Sana et al. So they did an evaluation and comparison of different dipsticks and so on. So they do serve their purpose, especially on-site testing. So that is one of the strategies that is used. But in any case, they test one mycotoxin at a time. There are some which test more than one. But the main one in the labs for quantitative analysis, a lot of labs actually use HPLC. But the problem with HPLC is that you need an immunoaffinity column for cleanup in order for a very nice separation, in order to have a very nice separation on your chromatograms, but mainly to have a very clean baseline, because this is very important when you're doing an integration here for quantitation, so that is where, the immunoaffinity plays it very well. But this is going to take time here in terms of extraction, purification. It will take you a good time, at least probably 3 hours processing samples here. And then you are required to run standards as well to cover, the calibrations and including your samples. And the same goes for ochratoxin A. You need a very clean baseline. Again, integration at the baseline is very important. Otherwise, you will have a lot of noise here and your quantitation is totally wrong. And again, the same thing with DON. very good baseline. If you use immunoaffinity cleanup, so which is very, very important. But now the problem with immunoaffinity cleanup is that it is expensive. This will cost you for just one mycotoxin, this is about $15 before you go into 3 hours of sample extraction and so on and so on. So just to give you an example, if you are to send your sample to a lab, so just to get these reports here from a lab for say 4 mycotoxins, I took here a snapshot from a quotation we got from a lab, to do just 4 mycotoxins, just so we could compare. Just to do, so if you have one sample that needs 4 mycotoxins, they are going to run a method for aflatoxin, and this will cost $86. Another one for zearalenone, and this will cost 81 pounds actually. And DON, and a separate method, 86, ochratoxin A, 81. So in total, just 4 mycotoxins, this will cost you 337 pounds. So this is because, of course, time is money. So they have labor costs over the sample preparation costs, immunoaffinity column usage as well. It will cost you a lot, and all to achieve a very resolved peak and nice baseline for proper quantitation. Now, a lot of labs actually are unable to do that. They can't afford maybe an HPLC, they can't afford probably an LC-MS and so on. And they're running ELISAs and so on and so on. So we provide the Biochip array technology, which can actually offer multiple mycotoxins, up to 9 mycotoxins in one run per sample. So this gives you a high throughput quantitative detection. So the Biochip array technology is based on a ceramic tile on which we spot antibodies, and gives us the basis for an immuno assay where we use HRP conjugate. And that is used, of course, in giving us a chemiluminescent signal for the detection of the mycotoxins. So just to look at a biochip in detail, so it comes in a carrier, what we call a biochip carrier in a kit, and a biochip carrier has 9 biochips on it. And if you look closely at the composition and structure of a biochip, it will have a reference spot, and this is required by the system for its own internal quality control check. And then we have, at the bottom, you also have a correction spot, and on the right, also another correction spot, and the system automatically uses this as a QC check. So in what then you get from each spot is chemiluminescent signal, and the intensity of the signal is inversely proportional to concentration of the mycotoxin. And because we can do this in a multiplexed manner, we compare ourselves to what the LC-MS does, but at a fraction of the cost. But according to 657 of 2002, this is an EC regulation regarding method validation and method development and validation. So it says, analytical techniques should demonstrate a false compliant rate of less than 5%, and ours really is even much less than 1%. And in most cases, we do not have any false compliant responses. So in the purpose of high throughput systems is to quantitatively sift out compliant samples. And you can do this with our biochip system because it quantitatively accurately tells you the concentration and can show you that this concentration is below the MRL wherever you are, because we cover all global MRLs in our range of detection. Okay, So that only non-compliant samples are confirmed by LC-MS. So for example, you would have about 13 samples probably. Let me just wait for you know, just giving an example. 13 samples coming in, and those are put on the investigator on the biochip, and we do quantitative analysis with over 95% accuracy, and you can report these results directly to the client because the turnaround time here is only 2.5 hours. So, but you can test up to 98 samples within 3 hours. And then you can imagine that from the 13 samples, only maybe 2 samples are above the MRLS, so they fail. You know, then these have to be confirmed by LC-MS. So you have reduced testing on the LC-MS by quite a lot. So if we had to look briefly at the implementation of the biochip, so we provide 9 calibrants, different concentrations of the calibrant, and we provide you with the biochips packed in a foil, and the rest of the reagents, the signal generator, as well as the HRP conjugate for all the mycotoxins that are to be detected by that kit. And then our generic kits, we have a Myco 5, which does 5 mycotoxins, 7 mycotoxins, and 9 mycotoxins. But just in case you are interested in a different kind of setup, we have what we call a Mycoflex. And then you can give us what you want to test, but you should give us a minimum of 3 mycotoxins that you need on the biochip. And that's how it is viable. It's a viable option. But I'll just show you here the example that we have regarding sample preparation. So it is very simple and straightforward. Kind of the same throughout most of our matrices, really. So we have 5 grams of homogenized sample, and to that 5 grams you add 25 mils of acetonitrile methanol water, and this is vortex for 10 minutes, you centrifuge for 2 minutes, and then the supernatant, you take 50 microliters and dilute it in 150 microliters of wash buffer. Wash buffer is also provided in the kit. And then what you do then is to go directly to your biochips, and you add 150 microliters of assay buffer, also provided in the kit. And then you add your standards 50 microliters in samples to the appropriate biochips and incubate at 25 degrees for 30 minutes in the thermoshaker. So this is also provided with the system. It comes with an incubator shaker. So HRP conjugate is then added and you incubate for 1 hour. After that incubation, then you wash the biochips. And then after washing, you add the substrate, which is the luminol and peroxide mixture, and incubate for 2 minutes. Then the magic is almost done. Then there is an automatic detection that goes on, and the system actually generates different calibration curves for all the mycotoxins that you have. So these are generated automatically. So you would see that we have a minimum performance for all our calibration curves. It should have a 95% or higher correlation. So so these ones here are 0.99, this is 0.99, this is 0.98, this is 1, this is 1. So, but if it's less than 95%, then the system rejects it. So this is how stringent the system works. And this also works very well in producing the accuracy that we have with the biochip. So the unknown samples are then calculated off the calibration curves and reported here. Dawn here is given as 754 ppbs fumonisin 221 ppbs, ochratoxin A 2.7 ppbs, and so on. So we did validation. We do validate from time to time just to update the performance of our system. And our system is actually validated in different matrices. And at any given time, we do quite a lot of validation, and we use different types of samples, numbers of samples, just to validate the performance of our system. And this is according to the EU regulation for validation that we use. So in addition to validation, we see that participating in proficiency testing programs is very, very important. But before we actually, in addition also to participating in PT programs, we also use samples that have been used in PT programs to check the continuous performance of our system. And the red spots are the assigned values from far past proficiency testing samples. And the yellow ones are from UK GNT samples, okay, the yellow ones. So the blue ones is the actual score from our arrays. So you can see that we are within the -2 and +2 range of the Z scores or assigned values that are given for those specific samples. And we continuously participate in these things like in proficiency testing, and we have all the time very good Z scores, and this is far pass. We also participate in LGC AFPS, and this is a New Zealand one. So in all these, we'll be competing, really flexing our muscles with other methods like the chromatographic, see on the right. But in addition to multiplexing mycotoxins in our analysis, we also multiplex matrices. You can run on the same calibration curve and detect accurately the concentration of different matrices in the same assay. You do not have to run soya, this is sorghum, on its own, and then run soya on its own, rice on its own. You can actually have these matrices in the same assay and on the same biochip carrier and have results for all of them. So if at the end of 2018, we got into a collaboration with AAFCO, which is the American Association of Feed Control Officials. So they were looking for a fit for purpose method. So they were having problems actually having uniform results across their proficiency testing program. So, so they were looking for a method that they could use as a multi-mycotoxin detection method. And so we actually had we worked with 9 labs across the mid to eastern part of the US, who on all these labs actually as feed control officials. They provided us with 17 samples which they had used in their PT programs. And the 9 labs, registered to participate in this interlaboratory evaluation program. So they were looking for method performance specifically to do with specificity, operational range, accuracy, and also fit for purpose, which of course should be defined by reproducibility and ease of use. So the criteria really was to use Z scores to make sure that over 95% of the Z scores passed. and also reproducibility is expressed by the HORAD value, and this should be within 0.3 to 2 range. And another one was that it should be less than 40% reproducible. So regarding the test, so the labs were trained to do the test just one day, and then the next day they were given the 17 samples to run. And so this is the formula for the Z-scores, and you can see here that the lowest performance was in T2 toxin. We had 97% pass on the Z-scores, but it ranged from 97% to 100% with only 1 day of training, 17 samples, detecting all these mycotoxins in one run. So therefore, the conclusion here was that more than 95%, of course, of the Z-scores were within the plus and minus, the plus and minus 2 range. And then the next one was the HORAD. So we were working with Alabama, Illinois, Kentucky, Missouri, Minnesota, Nebraska, New York, North Dakota, Wisconsin. And so we used the HORAD value here to check performance. And the lowest performance really was for aflatoxin G group. And because the aflatoxin G group had the lowest concentrations. And you know, if you're familiar with HORAD, the estimation of the error, the estimation of the HORAD value is higher, the error of the estimation is highest for very low concentrations. And this is why we had a 90% performance for aflatoxin G group, because it had very low concentrations. So by reproducibility was achieved. It was demonstrated. Most of the time, you can see here, it was 3 times 100%, and then but going down all the way to 90%. So, so Biochip has very, very strong advantages. It is reliable, very, very robust system. You're able to analyze all the required mycotoxins in one run and within a very short space of time. So giving you a very short, turnaround time on your analysis, and you're able to report your results. And so it gives you a lot of flexibility as well, and we're able to detect very low concentrations and high concentrations as well. So we cover all the global mycotoxin regulations in terms of providing a quantitative result. But in addition to all the mycotoxins I've been talking about, so one that has been missing there is ergot alkaloids. And for this, we have an ELISA. So this comes with standards and the rest of the reagents in the kit. And we actually developed this for all 12 ergot alkaloids. As you know, that the new recommendations for ergot alkaloids from the EU cover 12, the 12 ergot alkaloids. So the 6 parent, and then there are 6 enzymes as well. So these are the EU recommended Commission recommendations for ergot alkaloids, and so we validated this according to the EU regulation as well. But one of the things that we did is we compared the ELISA to HPLC MSMS performance. So what is important is the correlation here that you see on the right column, the last column here on the right. Very high correlation. I think the lowest correlation here is 81%. Okay, and we also participated in PT, proficiency testing, and we had we were lab number 15 in this FARPAS proficiency testing ground. And so our score here was 176 ppb against 186 ppb. So we had a 95% correlation. So, and then in baby foods, we also participated there, where we had a minus 0.6 Z-score, and we lab number 7. And you can see how close we are to the 0 over here in the middle. And there are some methods we are really, really out. Okay, so in this particular one, it was, you can find this in report 22163. We were lab number 7 in that. So, because the EU were looking for a test for ergot alkaloids to be used Europe-wide, so they went into a search of commercially available ELISA kits, and there are currently 3. So they took 3, including ours. Ours is one in the middle, the test kit 2. And they compared these tests against LC-MS. So you can see here, actually this table is not, we didn't write this. We took it from the report that was made by the Mycotoxin Reference Lab of Europe, which is the RICELT. So we took this from there, and it shows that that sign plus is good performance. So that means the ELISA showed positive or negative result for samples also reported as positive or negative by the LC-MS method. So you can see that this specific ELISA performs very, very well. So again, this was validated according to EU regulation, and it is a fit for purpose. And there is an excellent performance, as you saw just now, against LC-MS. Okay. So that actually comes to the end of my presentation. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please carry on.
Thank you so much, Liberty. I'm sure we all agree that that's a very interesting presentation that Liberty's given to us, where we're talking about multiplexing. We have had quite a lot of questions coming through in the Q&A, so I'm going to run Liberty through a couple of these now, just where we have another couple of minutes. We just haven't had time to answer everyone's questions, so we absolutely will get back to everyone. Liberty, one of the questions that someone has asked is, what's the minimum number of samples that can be run with the Biochip technology in order not to lose any other tests? Is there a minimum number of samples that can be run?
So, well, in fact, if you look at the Biochip carrier, you can actually remove some of the rows on a Biochip carrier to save your biochips if you do not have a lot of samples. So there's that flexibility, so you can test a minimum of 3 samples on the biochip. So if you have more, then that's fine. So, but there is that flexibility built into the biochip so that you do not lose any testing material.
Liberty, another question. Do you have to manually interpret the results?
No. Actually, this is done for you. The only thing that you need to take care of is the dilution factor, and the manual tells you what to do and what dilution factor to put into the software when you're running the sample. So the system calculates everything automatically and gives you the results in ppbs.
Perfect, Liberty. Sorry, one more question is, I believe this customer must be ELISA customer currently. They're saying, how do you minimize the use of consumables?
Yeah, minimizing the use of consumables. I think they are good laboratory practice. Whatever you use and do not, whatever you do not use, you put it in the fridge. I think that is very, very important. So refrigeration of what you use, of what is remaining, is very, very important. And that will actually make sure that you can lengthen your testing reagents, and just like you do for ELISA as well.
Thanks very much, Liberty. One more question. Sorry, so Liberty, someone has asked if you could talk a little bit about the product's positioning and where it relates to both small and medium-sized food producers.
I think, for example, this system does not require extensive laboratory, infrastructure. So you can accommodate it in a small room, in fact. And so that means a small-sized lab or food processing facility can actually run their own, mycotoxin testing. And also the proficiency or the training that is required to do tests with our Biochip system is very, very simple. Training is very, very minimal. And going forward in using the system is very, very easy to do. And maintenance is also not a huge problem. I mean, I have clients who have used our system now for over 5 years, and they do not have a problem. But there's always the occasional making sure that cameras, things are set up properly and so on, but nothing really extensive.
Thanks, Liberty. So another question that we've got, is there a different protocol to different matrices that are used for testing?
No. If you have, I did present that for example, the Myco 9 or even the Myco 7. Myco 9 is just an extension of the Myco 7 and extension of the Myco 5. And they are all validated across different matrices. So this is why you are able to test different matrices on the same biochip carrier in the same test and actually get results from the same calibration curve in the same run.
One other question that we've got in at the moment is, do we offer after-sales support? Yes, we do offer after-sales support. We have technical specialists all around the world based in various different locations. So we absolutely do offer after-sales support as well. We have quite a lot of questions coming through at the moment, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to respond to everyone's questions individually. But thank you so much, Dr. Sibanda, for your time this afternoon. It's been a very informative presentation. We have a lot of people saying thank you. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone who has joined the seminar this afternoon. And we look forward to responding to everyone's questions individually. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.